Let's talk about the scientific way to write down final answers when doing a lab activity or a homework assignment. When it comes to decimals, the rule that we're going to follow is there is no rule. We are simply going to write down one or two places after the decimal. We're not going to bother with sig figs. If you don't know what sig figs are, then don't worry about it since we're not going to use them. But also, we're not going to follow the rule that you may have heard from your math teacher that goes like, always round to 3 decimal places, always and forever. It's actually that last idea that I want to try to explain away. And to do that, I have a scenario. Let's say a science teacher asks the class to measure the length of the room in meters. A student is ready, but they don't know where the meter sticks are. They look to the left and they can't find anything. They look right and nothing, but they do see a stick and they estimate that it's about a meter, so they pick that up. So they go to one side, lay down the meter stick, and count how many as they go along, until they get to the end, but after 9, there's only about a third of the space left. So the student returns to the teacher and the whiteboard, and what do they write down? 9.333 meters, because they're following the rule from their math teacher who said to always write down 3 decimal places, always, always, always. What do we think of that result? In fact, this is a poor scientific answer. Why? In science, decimal places signify confidence and accuracy in an experiment. Look at this number. It's actually not just a number, it's a measurement. This represents 9 meters, 33 centimeters, and 3 millimeters. This number implies the student knows the length of the room to the thousandth of a meter, which doesn't match their experiment. First, the kid approximated a meter from a random stick, and then they roughly guessed how many extra space was left over from the far side of the classroom. Another quick example to show this. Let's say you're driving a truck, and you know your payload was measured to be 34 tons. Approaching a bridge, you see that it says the max weight is 34.422 tons. Since you know your truck weighs less than that sign, you may feel you're totally safe to cross. But let's say instead the sign said max weight 34 tons. Then that might give you some pause. Do you see the difference? Adding more decimals, intentional or not, makes it seem like you know the value is more precise than it really is. Likewise, some measurement tools are way more precise than 3 decimal places. If the kid whipped out a laser interferometer, it's okay if you don't know what that is, but it can measure within nanometers, simply writing 9.333 wouldn't be giving themselves enough credit. It appears less precise than their device detected. What's a better answer? To be honest, it depends on the experiment. Maybe you estimate how many decimals make sense to you, or especially for labs, you include possible sources of error that limit your precision. And let's be clear, it's perfectly fine having a result that's not very precise or accurate as long as you're being honest about it. Science is in part about sharing what we learn, and we need to be truthful about our confidence. So, always round to 3 decimal places, maybe it's fine for math, but it doesn't make sense in science. If you know what sig figs are, they do solve some of these problems, but they also aren't perfect. And College Board doesn't use sig figs, so there's no reason for us to use those either. Those prior examples are also related to why science teachers usually want decimal answers and not fractions at the very end. If you write down the fraction 1/3 as your final result, well, that's an infinitely long decimal, not a very scientific number to leave at the end of a math problem. Lastly, the last thing that nobody wants, please don't perform decimal diarrhea, where you blindly copy the number from the calculator without stopping, so it just goes on without ever ending. That's the epitome of misrepresenting accuracy or precision. Just round to 1 or 2 places after the decimal. Thanks.